Okay, so Copeland entitled this chapter Preliminaries because there are certain things that we need to have with us before he gives us a bunch of advice on how to become intelligent listeners. Remember, that's his goal. His goal is for his audience to become intelligent listeners and not just one of those whatever kind of listeners, right? He wants them to have the intelligence to know what they're listening for. So in a sense, chapter 1 is like the stuff we need to put in our bags before we go on a trip. Or here's something that you should know, the sine qua non of our peregrinations. Okay, you should be familiar with that because it's in your reading guide. Okay, so the beginning of one's journey, according to Copeland here, the beginning of one's journey to a better understanding of music starts with the listening process. So the first essential is this. He says the person, number one, the person must listen to music. And it's as simple as that. Do you want to know what to listen for in music? Well, you must listen to music. It is a simple resolution to listen to music. It's yourself saying, I will listen to music. Not, I will put on some music while I'm studying or cleaning or eating chocolate or eating ice cream. Okay? You can do those things, but you're not going to become an intelligent listener if you're putting that in the background. It does help, I listen to some sort of music when I do certain things. And so that does help me listen to just a bunch of things, but not necessarily intelligently listening to those things. But that's not what he's saying, though. It is an intentional activity. Okay? That's why yung listening guide specifically mentions without doing anything else. Because it's easy. It really is easy to say, okay, I've done this. When I was in school, my teacher just plainly said, you should listen to this bunch of music from this era. You can do all sorts of things with it. You just need to familiarize how it sounds, right? And I've done that. I've listened to 3 hours of straight Baroque era playlist, but I was doing something else. I was just getting familiarized with the sound. But that's not what Copeland is saying. That's not what I actually am training you to be an intelligent listener. So the first one is you listen to music. Well, although simply listening starts the journey, he says, it does not automatically lead to a better understanding of music. Okay, so Copeland, what does? He says, listening intelligently does. So what is the difference? Okay, paano natin ma-achieve yung intelligently part? I mean, kailangan ko ba ng Einstein IQ? Pag narinig natin yung word na intelligent, we think IQ. We think 90 lahat ng grades, 90 pataas grades. A lahat. Okay? Hindi yun yung ibig sabihin. According to Copeland, becoming an intelligent listener does not mean that a person becomes a good musical mimic. Narinig mo, naalala niyo to sa reading, pag narinig nyo, you could just go back to your house and, kung meron kang keyboard or sa church, kaya mo na mamimik ka agad. He's not talking about that. He also said that it doesn't mean that you have a sense of absolute pitch. Okay, absolute perfect pitch. So kung wala kang perfect pitch, hindi ka na intelligent listener. You have no possibility na maging intelligent listener. That's not what he means. And thankfully that's not what he means, because I'm not good in either one of them. I don't have perfect pitch, and I'm not a very good musical mimic. So instead, sabi niya, a second essential is this. An intelligent listener is someone who has the ability to recognize a melody when he hears it. And then he clarifies, not sing a melody, but recognize it when it's played. Even after an interval of a few minutes and after other and different melodies have sounded. If listeners have the ability to follow the melody or tune in a piece of music, then they would know where they are. They would know where they have been and will be going in the musical journey of that piece. Sometimes I think we think na yung second essential. So review tayo sandali. 2 essentials for our peregrinations or our journey sa becoming intelligent listeners. Number 1, we resolve to listen to music, right? Number 2, we recognize a melody. We have the ability to recognize the melody. If you have both of them, you really wouldn't be a music major at BGMBC. So if you're a student here and you're an official music major, you have both of them, okay? So you're on your way to becoming intelligent listeners. But sometimes you think that recognizing a melody is something that can't be expanded or grown. At least I used to think this way, or unconsciously think this way. So it's like a hit or miss kind of thing. Some days you're good at listening, and some days you're just not good at it. Some days hindi mo na ma-recognize a melody. Some days, oh yeah, I recognize that, and you feel good about yourself, and you're like, wow. And then the next day you're like, I don't know where that came from, or it changed key, so you're like, I don't know. How many of us actually thought to listen to music just so we can grow our skill in being able to recognize the opening theme of a piece? If you feel like that, then you should tell yourself, okay, can I train myself to do this? Maybe, you know what, even if I'm listening to it in the background, maybe, I'm going to listen to the first bit, and every time I hear the theme again, I'm going to, I'm just going to say, okay, 1 time, 2nd time, 3rd time. And then after that, you check the score online, sa IMSLP or something where you can get it for free, and you just look at it. Sometimes Wikipedia even tells you how many times a theme comes up in a very famous piece of music. It analyzes it for you. Just do that. I don't know, if you have time, or if you really want to grow in it. My point is, you can actually do that. You can grow in it. It doesn't just say, you don't just say, I'm just going to let time kind of teach me how to do that. There's some truth in that, but also there's a whole lot of laziness in that. But it's true that experience will help you go forward with certain things, but it also needs us to be a little bit more aggressive in pursuing something like that. So I'm encouraging you. It's not something that you just, you just kind of either have it or you don't have it. You can have it as long as you do have those 2 things. You resolve to listen to music, have the ability to recognize a melody. Not sing it, just recognize a melody when you hear it. All right, let's move on to chapter 2. So Copeland is now saying, it's like, okay, that's great. That's the preliminary, the sine qua non, okay? Now, well, how do we listen? So in this chapter, Copeland is trying to help us and a little bit of what is going on in our minds as we listen. I usually think this is helpful. I think this is generally helpful, what he does here. And this is not meant to be the Bible or the authority on how people listen. He's just trying to simplify things a little bit, but it is surely a good and observable, close to reality way of thinking about our listening experience. I'm not sure if you've read this, you're like, I kind of when I read this, the very first time I read Copeland and this part, I thought like, that's true. I didn't disagree with anything. I couldn't disagree because it's that observable. Okay, it's that real life, close to reality kind of thing. It's not complete or exhaustive explanation, but it truly is a good start. I think I'm in your. You will see in your future listening reports, it will target certain things here. I'm not gonna say, okay, we're now doing the sensuous plane, expressive plane. I'm not doing that, but I target specific levels of listening in your listening reports in the future. Okay, so he talks about the 3 listening planes, not the one that goes up in the air, okay? Not Superman kind of plane, but levels of existence. Okay, that's what it means. I'm pretty sure you're not. I'm pretty sure you didn't think airplane, but just to make sure that we cover that. 3, these listening planes go from shallow to profound or deep. Not in a bad, good way. So ibig sabihin, if we say something shallow, sometimes we think, oh, that person's shallow. Ibig sabihin parang, you know, hindi siya, it's somehow derogatory. It somehow is a bad way, has a bad connotation. It doesn't mean that way. It just means shallow, very reactionary to something really thought of. So that's what he means by that. So number 1 talks about the sensuous plane. Okay, it has nothing to do with sensuality in a sense that it's immoral, sensual. Sensuous plane is just the senses. Okay, he says here, listening for the sheer pleasure of the musical sound itself. This is the shallow level, not because you're a terrible person. If you listen in the sensuous plane, it's not because you're a terrible person, but because you haven't given the listening experience a thought yet. Remember, it's reactionary, so you're reacting. Copeland says, yes, the sound appeal of music is a potent, powerful, and primitive force. Sabihin, it goes back to our nature. We are made to either like or not like something, or to react to certain sounds. And it's an important one in music. You see, you'd want your compositions to be likable, diba? I mean, I don't know about you, but you want your music, your compositions to be likable in this sense. You would want non-musicians to be able to relate to music at this level. You would want your church mates to be able to appreciate it without thinking like, oh, he does this certain like cool puzzle effect with the chords and stuff. You don't want that, right? So church, you just want it to be, you want this at this level, sensuous. So it's not bad. But the sensuous plane does not tell the whole story. Don't get the idea, Copeland says, that the value of music is commensurate or in proportion with its sensuous appeal. Or that the loveliest sounding music is made by the greatest composer. Now, I'm going to listen to 2 different composers. I'm not going to tell you who they are for now. I will tell you later. But let's listen to them in a sensuous plane kind of way, and based on the composition's likeableness to us, we're gonna say that's the better composer. Got it? Say yes. Say yes. Excellent. Okay. I could still be demanding from afar. Do you know that? Okay, so here's the first one. Okay, here's the second one. With one or two. Which one did you like better? Which one's the better composer? According to the sensuous play, number one. I don't know. If you like number two better than number one, you're probably one of the few peoples. All right. The first one is by Miss Rachel Steffensmeyer. Okay. But I think she would agree with me. And if she ever watches this, and if you ever ask her, it's okay if she disagrees. But I think she agrees that Schoenberg is the better composer. The second one is famous 20th century composer Schoenberg, and he did some really pretty weird stuff. Actually, that's not one of his weirdest stuff. The one with the clarinet and the cello and the piano. So each composer's usage of the sound is an important part of his or her style, but that is not the whole picture. That's what Copeland is saying. Now, I think, in fact, one of the main reasons why Miss Rachel's sound is different than Schoenberg is because of her worldview, her biblically grounded philosophy in life, and how sound should sound, how music should sound, how it should appeal in certain ways, how it should be organized. But of course, that discussion would always go on for a different class because it demands a little bit more philosophy than music theory. Okay? But let me go on to this sensuous playing topic for a little bit, the likability of something and music's sound, how it affects what we think and how our worldview affects it. It's like, let's move on to, I'll say that at some other time. Let's move on to number two. Let's move on to the expressive playing. So sensuous playing, shallow, reactionary. I'm just reacting to it. I like it. I don't like it. Not the whole story. Number two, expressive playing. We're going a little deeper, and we're listening for the general meaning of music. I'm gonna stop my share screen because I can just talk. You can just look at the syllabus, mama. So you're listening for the general meaning of music, not specific. General meaning of music. Of course, I changed my mind like a typical woman, so I'm going to share the handout because I think there's some things that would probably be better if you see some. Okay? Music has a certain meaning behind the notes, and that the meaning behind the notes constitute to what the piece is saying, what the piece is about. Now, people would often compare music's ability to communicate with language or words and language or words' ability to communicate. And we often think correctly that words and language have specificity of meaning to them. Because again, when I say I'm sad, you know what I mean, right? Now, when girls say they're okay, I think Aaron has figured this out. When your wife says, I'm okay, that means a whole lot more than just I'm okay, right? you don't actually sometimes really don't know what that means. But generally speaking, when someone says I'm sad, you know what they mean. They're sad. But when a certain slow piece of music is heard, we can say it's sad. Maybe we could say it's moody, or maybe we could say it's lazy, right? But we know it's not happy. We know, generally speaking, it's not active, right? So that's what he's saying with the general mood, general meaning. We can't be specific as it's angry. Well, it can sound angry, but maybe it's just aggressive. But it certainly isn't kind or gracious. Well, we could say that about music. And he also says here, music expresses at different moments, moods, and many others in a numberless variety of subtle shadings. It may even express meaning for which there exists no adequate word in any language. Okay, so we've heard this before, that music is the universal language. It can reach certain aspects of humanity that words can't. And here's why I think, and maybe I'll change my mind in the future about this, but comparing words and music as a communicative tool in the same, so let's say music is a communicative tool, words are a communicative tool, and they're in the same level, and we compare them in that same way. I think it's a little unfair, and speaking here now, or it doesn't do justice to both their communicative purposes. Words are meant to be specific. Sound and musical sounds aren't meant to be specific, I think. So it's like, I wrote here, it's like comparing the sweetness of Saba and Lakatan. Both are bananas, both can be sweet when ripe. Which one is sweeter though? Which one do you think is sweeter? The sweetness level, content. And I'm like, you know what? Let's Google this. So I Googled it. And actually the sugar content of a ripe Lakatan is way, 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 way higher than the sugar content level of a ripe Saba. Okay? But if you're a Saba enthusiast or a Saba lover like my mother, okay, you know that there is a dimension or a type of sweetness that is unique to Saba. If I try to make turon with Lakatan, it doesn't work. Although it's sweeter, it just doesn't work. The sweetness of Saba is different and essential to make turon, right? Of course, brown sugar is essential in making turon, but it's the Saba itself. It's the same kind of comparison of words and music, I think. One is more precise than the other, but it doesn't mean that music can't offer a dimension of meaning that words can, right? So ibig sabihin, yes, they're both communicative tool. We can compare them, but at some point, they have different perspective in meaning. And I think people sometimes get bothered by the fact that music doesn't communicate as specifically as words can. Well, it doesn't have to. I think it doesn't have to, and I think it wasn't meant to. So anyway, I just say it out there for you to think about. But again, that discussion is for another class. So you have the sensuous, you have the expressive, and then you go to the music theory world plane, which is the sheerly musical plane. Listening for the manipulation or composition of musical materials. You know, the music theory aspect of it, the intervals, the keys, the whatever. And Copeland, I love how, you know, he says something about musicians. He said, they often fall into the error of becoming so engrossed, captured by their arpeggios, staccatos, that they forget the deeper aspects of the music they're performing. And, you know, you might have fallen in this error already, and I certainly have. But musicians think that because they can listen for the music theory aspects of music, that they're intelligent listeners already. And as I've said before, not so the case, my children. And I was once a child, so welcome to the club. The intelligent listener must be prepared to increase his awareness of the musical material and what happens to it. He must hear the melodies, the rhythms, harmonies, tone colors in a more conscious fashion. Technical knowledge is important. Above all, he must, in order to follow the line of the composer's thought, know something of the musical form. So, in other words, an intelligent listener uses the technical knowledge to arrive at the composer's intent. What does the composer mean when he says rubato? Why does she use a 5-chord in this part of the melody, and when it comes back, he uses a 4-chord, or she uses a 4-chord? You must know how to apply that. You must know how to apply. Change the chords. What change? What does that composer want you to do with that information? And it's as an intelligent listener, we should be conscious of that fact, and we should arrive at good conclusions and interpretations. Lest you think that these listening planes are like floors in the building, Copeland clarifies, we simultaneously listen and without thinking on all three planes. And it's true. Sometimes I like the music and I'm sheerly musical listening to it. And also at the same time, kind of like feeling what the expression is. So he doesn't say it's all like here, 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 but it's kind of like mishmash. That's why I think this is helpful, because he picks them apart for us and helps us understand that in ways that we would never have thought if he didn't write or talked about it. So what the reader should strive for is a more active kind of listening by being a more conscious. He says conscious, aware, not someone who is just listening, but someone who is listening for something. That's why he entitled his lectures, What to Listen For in Music, giving you a little bit of clue as to what he's talking about. Okay, so I have posted your schedule for your presentation, and it's on the stream, so Google Classroom. I think you can see that easily. With your friends, if you want to split up your topic, you can negotiate. But just remember that your outline is due. You know what? Let's just say, just for your mind's sake, let's just say, your outline is due on Tuesday. How about that? Because Karen is going to be split in like Wednesday and Friday. So technically, Karen has to turn in her outline Tuesday and Wednesday. Pero it's just an outline. If you're already done with the outline, if you're already like, the outline is, you can use the handout as the outline. You can use my handout as the outline. If you turn it in on Tuesday, it's fine. Aaron needs to turn his on Tuesday, for sure. Okay? But Karen, you can choose either Tuesday or Wednesday. But I don't know. I think it would be easier if it's just all Tuesday. And then you have a homework on Tuesday. Copeland reading, chapters 3 and 18, and more listening. A little bit more longer listening, but on the sensuous plane, it will be likable. I think I posted it and it's supposed to come out in Google Classroom at noon or something like that. Again, if you need to reach me, you message me on Messenger and I didn't reply like a bad person, just email me with a thumbs down or something. Or like, Mom, or like, help, like urgent, something like that. Okay, any questions? Voila. Okay, well, stay safe and don't do anything I wouldn't do, which is probably gonna be not a whole lot. Okay, well, I am going to dismiss you and I'm gonna go eat lunch like a normal person. All right, see ya.